Hello and welcome to another episode of the Psychic School podcast and the Aphantasia Experiments podcast. This is a crossover episode. I am just going to do crossover episodes whenever I mention aphantasia. So if you have aphantasia and you're into psychic development, I also have another podcast called the Psychic School podcast. And if you're psychic and you want to learn more about aphantasia, I have a podcast called Aphantasia Experiments. So whichever one you're listening to, just know that there's two. Today I want to talk to you about fevers and what they do to our brains. So over this past weekend, I got extremely ill. It's Monday now, but on Thursday, I left work and it's like something crawled inside of me and died. On my way home from work, I started getting a fever. I was shaky. I got home. I ended up at the hospital with breathing issues. I'm much better now, but throughout the weekend, I had a lot of things kind of happen. And by the way, I am driving. I mentioned before in another episode that my kids are home for the summer, and this is how I can record a podcast right now. So I'm just making do. So this weekend I had a fever. I was in the hospital, and during my hospital stay, I was in and out of like consciousness. I was just in the bed and tossing and turning, and I kept having, it was like I was in a dream state, so I'd have visuals, but then I was like, I'm not sure if they're visuals, but I'd have these flashes of scenes come into my mind. One scene was like a Puff Daddy falling into a pool. There was my daughter was clapping. There was a bunch of random scenes that came in, and none of them made any sense, and they were so fast and came out of nowhere, and it was just like boom, 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 like almost like changing the channel, like flipping channels on a TV. Sorry. I am getting over pneumonia. I'm sorry, this is so inappropriate to cough on a podcast, but this is life. So I had that experience, and I was thinking, okay, why is it that when you're in a fever state, do you have more like visuals come through? And is that for everyone? Does everyone with aphantasia, when you get really sick, do you have more like dreams, and do you feel, I don't know. What happened to me was I felt really connected to the other side. And I'll explain more about that. I was having these like visuals and these hallucinations, almost, I would call them. My eyes were closed. It was kind of like a dream, and I'd have these flashes come in. So I feel like it was probably like a dream, but like a glitchy dream. I don't know. My oldest son, when he was around 11, he got a really high fever, and he came out of his bedroom like half asleep. He was sleeping, and he came out, and he started speaking in another language. It didn't just sound like gobbledygook. It wasn't just like a random, it felt like it was a different language. I have no idea what language it was, but he was talking, and I was like, what is going on? He was like walking like a dinosaur, and that experience, that fever-induced like sleepwalking experience, ended up becoming like a year long, maybe it was even 2 years of him sleepwalking nightly and doing like really weird stuff and saying really weird things. And at some point he got really like almost aggressive and scary, but eventually he grew out of it, and I don't know if that was hormonal or what. He was around 11 or 12 at the time, but it started with a fever. And I wonder, like, what is it about being in a fever state that makes you either hallucinate, I just dropped my purse, hallucinate or have weird things go on in your mind? Like, what is that? I don't know, but there's definitely something there. So on Saturday, so Friday I was at the hospital. Saturday I was feeling a little bit better, but I was still in and out of a fever. And I started hearing voices, and I usually hear my own voice, but I was hearing someone I know that had crossed over his voice, and it was like loud as day. So I just started having a conversation. You know, this maybe it makes me sound crazy, but it was completely real and happened. And I had this whole conversation with him, and then I started asking specific questions, and I started getting the answers. And then the wildest thing happened. I started asking questions about my travel, because I'm trying to book a vacation right now for my family of 5. It's a family of 6, but 5 of us are going. And it's been really difficult because I have 2 kids with food allergies, and I'm kind of just paranoid and scared about the food allergies on vacation, and it's last minute, and it's just, you just never know what you're going to get on vacation. You say it's a 4-star, but it's really a 2-star. You have no idea, right? And so I'm reading reviews, and there's good reviews and bad reviews, and it's so hard, right? And I'm fairly intuitive. I look at pictures and I'm like, no, that looks like it's, angled in a way that, like, why are they just taking a picture of this chair? Or, like, why don't they take a picture of the whole room? Like, I know the tricks that real estate agents do, and I know, like, I'm in design and marketing, right? So I can see through, and I can see through the false reviews versus the real ones. Anyways, so I was asking this person I know who's crossed over if they could, because when he was alive, he was a big traveler. So I asked if he could help me with my travel, and he said, yes. Where do you want me to take you? And the wildest experience happened. I gave him a list of my resorts, and he would take me through the spots. So he took me to the pool, and he described what it looked like, and I didn't see any of it, but he would describe it so perfectly. And then I went on Google after and looked at all these places. Like, I don't retain any of this information when I look at it. Like, I looked at hundreds of resorts, right? So I wasn't retaining any of, like, what the pools look like or any of that. But he told me exactly the way things were laid out, like a hut here and a corner here and this and that. Sorry. I'm so sorry. This is so gross to cough on a podcast. Anyways, after I did this whole thing, it was such a crazy experience. I went on Google and I looked up the hotels, and it was exactly what he said. It was like I was remote viewing, but through, like, channeling. And I've never experienced anything even remotely close to what I experienced this weekend. Like, that was beyond. I feel like that was probably mediumship. Like, fully, it was just such a really cool experience. And even though I felt like garbage, I felt like I was opening up to the other side. And maybe it was because I was so sick, and, like, when you're sick, you're closer to the other side. So perhaps that's why I was able to communicate so clearly. Anyways, it was such a wild experience, so I wanted to share it with everyone here, and I wanted to see if anyone else out there with aphantasia or without aphantasia, anyone who's trying to, like, open up to their spiritual gifts, their psychic, their mediumship abilities. I often get dead people come to my dreams often. Like, I get that a lot, and I do wonder if I'm supposed to help people cross over. I have that thought in my head because it happens so often. And the fact that, like, I can tell kind of when someone's gonna, like, when someone's sick, I can see that in them. And, like, often people who come into my dreams are not people I, like, even know very well. It's like someone's aunt or something, like, it's just so random. So I wonder if that's part of, who I am. But this was, like, during the day. I was awake. I was, feverish, but I wasn't, like, the way I was on Friday, where I was, like, in and out of consciousness and visual, like, seeing stuff. I was awake and sentient, and it was happening, and I was hearing stuff, and it was so real and so life-altering. And now I'm wondering, can I access that state again now that I've already accessed it? I haven't had any alone time since to focus and meditate on it. I will update you once I do. My kids are home. It just happened to be that they went out for my daughter's soccer game, so I was alone for an hour, and that I had such a bad headache, so I decided I was going to try to meditate while sick. And I just sat there and I was doing like my meditative practice where I repeat something in my mind over and over again. And that's when the stuff started coming in. Actually, my dog was with me, and my dog kept looking to the left side of me, and I could feel this energy. And that energy is the energy I remember of this person. And I had recently read a book where it talked about how the woman found out, like, she could feel this energy, but she didn't really trust it in herself, and her dog kept staring at it, and then she asked the energy to move to the other side of her, and it did, and the dog followed the energy. Anyway, so I did that. Before this whole thing started, I could feel his energy, and then once I really believed, because my dog was watching this energy move, and I could feel the energy move. I am huge on energy, and I think that people that don't feel energy or think that people who feel energy are crazy, but I feel it so much, and I don't know if it's because of my aphantasia. When you're blind or you're deaf, you often have heightened other senses, and I think this is my superpower. I feel it, and it's a hard superpower to have because it can be extremely draining and difficult to deal with. It's wild. So that happened, and then the voice, I started asking questions, and I just kept trying to take it further and further, and I just kept getting surprised. And the remote viewing thing was something else, I tell you. So I couldn't see anything, but that didn't stop me from experiencing and getting the information that I needed. It was better than any Google search I've ever done. Now I gotta go back and ask him to do it again to help me with the food allergy stuff, but it was a pretty magical experience. So I wanted to just throw this up there to see if anyone's ever had a feverish-induced mediumship psychic experience, if you've ever experienced remote viewing, if you've ever talked to someone on the other side and had them remote view for you. What a wild ride and wild experience. Try it out. If you ever feel like you're talking to someone on the other side, or if you feel like you've opened something up, see if you can do it. See if you can, name a resort or an area, and see if someone, the person on the other side can take you there and explain what's going on over there. There's a kid by the pool, he just dropped his towel in the water. There was so much I was getting, and obviously I can't confirm or deny any of those things, but the visuals he was giving me were so bang on, it was insane. So anyways, that is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know it's a quick one, but I really felt like that was such a big thing for me. And I feel like it's probably an experience that not only I have had, or maybe it is, I don't know, but I'd love to hear from you. My email address is psychicschoolpodcast@gmail.com. I answer emails. I love hearing from my fans. It makes me so happy to hear when someone reaches out and says that my podcast has resonated with them in some way. So feel free. And on to the next episode. Have a wonderful day.